Well, if you are in the mood for a monster dog on the card here this week that may just be able to cash a ticket for you, well, you're in luck because we've got three best bets. We've got three game previews, couple of favorites, but absolutely a couple of dogs that you're going to want to hear about here as we welcome you into the college football kickoff show powered by wagertalk.com. BP in the house, Brian Power, Adam Trigger, and 1RR, 1L. That would be Steve Merrill. And here we are, week one. And we're going to start off with an interesting one here, BP, because we've got a Cal North Texas game. Not a crazy spread here. Don't know how these two teams ended up meeting each other on week one, but give me an idea of where we should be leaning in this matchup.
Okay, Joe, so what's really interesting looking big picture here at week one, you've got 5 instances where you have a Power 5 school as a road favorite against a group of 5 team. 4 of those 5 instances, the road team's coming from the Pac-12. And when you look at the entire grouping, I think Cal might be the shakiest road favorite of this bunch. You've got a program that's up in the air. We don't know where they're going to be playing, what conference in the future. And it's not like there's been a ton of success under Justin Wilcox during his time in Berkeley. Just 4 wins last year for the Bears, and only one of them came by more than one possession against an FBS opponent. You talk about the road favorite role. Cal has not been good under Wilcox. 2-6 against the number in his 6 years here. That includes an outright loss at Colorado last year. That was Colorado's only win of 2022. You're looking at a new offensive coordinator in Berkeley, a new quarterback. Cal wasn't particularly strong defensively. Auburn is on deck. So I just don't really like this situation at all for the favorite. And turning to North Texas, you got to figure they're going to be fired up for this game. They have a new head coach in Eric Morris. Seth Luttrell did a great job, I thought, overall, but he was 0-7 in conference championships and bowl games. That's going to cut anybody's tenure short. So that's why there was the coaching change. Morris is going to look to play fast offensively. 15 returning starters. Great overall. You got a great set of receivers. Veteran transfer quarterback Chandler Rogers. And, oh, by the way, Morris was the offensive coordinator at Washington State last year, and his offense put up 415 yards in a 28-9 win over Cal. It's going to be hot Saturday in Denton, as it always is this time of year. And this is North Texas's only home game, Joe, until September 30th. They're going to be fired up. I made this line closer to a field goal and would not rule out the possibility of an outright upset by the Mean Green Saturday afternoon.
One of those under-the-radar games here, guys, that you won't find anyplace else. Now, the good news is we've got at least 5 other games here we're going to break down along with 3 best bets. And if you like this kind of content and you love game previews, go ahead, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, guys. More great college football content always and all week here on Wager Talk TV. As we promised you before, the possibility of a monster, and I mean a monster dog cover in here this week one. Who better to lay that out than one Adam Trigger joining us? And Trig, you went to the Big Ten for this one. Tell us about Ohio State taking on Indiana.
Well, unlike Brian, I might rule out the outright win here. With Indiana, I don't know if they can get the win in this game, Joe. But I was on Wager Talk yesterday, and I talked about this with Kent State, Central Florida, in the respect that I thought Kent State was getting a little bit out of hand. There would be some sharp money at some point that hit Kent State, and that happened at 37. And when you get with these games that are over 30, over mid-20s into the 30s, and you want to make a case for the dog, you usually are making a case for the number, in my opinion. Because I'm not going to sit here and break down why I think Indiana is going to beat Ohio State, because I don't think anyone would do that or even thinks that that's going to be the case. But we're betting point spreads. We're not betting when the point spreads get too big, we're really betting a number. And as the betting public continues to drive this up, assuming they do, I saw 30.5. I wouldn't be surprised if the same day bettors get involved at some point here and it goes to 31 and further. At some point, there's going to be a point in time where Indiana is a pretty good bet. And it may very well be right now at 30.5. I really think anything higher than 30 is probably okay here. So let's just look at the breakdown of the two teams. Like Ohio State, I want to fade this team this year, at least in the early going. The reason is I feel like they're being sort of pegged as the elite option, and I don't know that that's fully the case. Obviously, CJ Stroud is gone; he's in the NFL. It looks like it's going to be Kyle McCord who's going to be the starting quarterback. Now he's got all the skill players in the world on this offense, but the offensive line had some turnover, and without an elite offensive line, or until they prove themselves to be elite, in my opinion, you cannot have the number one offense. It's not possible. It doesn't matter how many skill players you have or who they are. You can't be the number one offense in the country without an elite offensive line, and we don't know if that's going to be the case yet with Ohio State's offensive line. On the defensive side of the ball, they have a bunch of playmakers. They will be pretty good defensively. But one thing they did last year, Joe, they gave up. They were almost the opposite of bend but don't break, right? Like the bend but don't break defense is the team that sort of like bears down and gets the stop, holds other teams to 3. And Ohio State didn't do that. They gave up a lot of touchdowns in the red zone. Once teams kind of were driving a lot, they would pay it off with a touchdown, and that's fine. They're still probably going to outscore teams and win a lot of these games, but it is really hard to cover numbers, especially when you're being priced as the elite option to cover numbers like 30 and a half. That gets difficult if you're going to give up touchdowns to the opposition. On the Indiana side, are they going to have a great team this year? Probably not. But one thing they do well, or one thing they should do well, is run the ball. Chew up some clock, at least move the chains a little bit. But when you're talking 30 plus points on the spread, a lot of times that's all you need is a little of clock control, being able to flip the field and maybe keep Ohio State out of the end zone on a possession they maybe should score, or get in for a couple touchdowns. It's usually all it takes. I think this number's too big. It has not made my client card yet, but I think this is more my PSA to say, maybe pump the brakes before you just come out and just casually lay 30 something with Ohio State. I don't know if it's the best spot for them to win a game by 5 touchdowns. So for me, I would be on the dog here in the Indiana Hoosiers. I take the 31, whatever it is, a lot of points.
Jim Knowles heading into his second year as DC there at Ohio State, former Oklahoma State defensive coordinator, but you knew that, Brian Power, didn't you? Well, we're going to go from a 30-point dog. What about the big favorites on the card? Are there any worth betting? And our man, Steve Merrill, R1L, something tells me you might have one of these big favorites here on your card for us today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm entering my 28th football season as a professional full-time handicapper. And one thing I've changed a little bit over the years is I'm not as much of a contrarian as I used to be. I don't like just the buy and hope strategy of playing big underdogs and hoping they can stay within the spread when I know they have no chance of winning. I like to look for better teams in blowout situations, motivated situations. I think we have one on Saturday night. This is the national TV game at 7:30 Eastern Saturday night on NBC, West Virginia, Penn State. And Penn State will be fully focused here for several reasons. First of all, I think they're a dark horse national title contender, a definite team that can make the Final Four if some of the wins fall right for them. And what you need with a team as a dark horse to make the national title Final Four is, first of all, a team that's in a power conference that has big games such as they do at Ohio State, at home against Michigan. They can pull some upsets there. They control their own destiny. And then on top of that, you need a talented team. And I think Penn State definitely qualifies in that regard. 11-2 straight up last year, 9-3 against the spread with one push. Franklin's 10th season there. He's got one of his best, maybe his best team ever at Penn State. Meanwhile, the other side of the coin, we got West Virginia, who's really been an underachiever now. Neil Brown's first 4 seasons, they're just 22-25 straight up. They've yet to be above 500 against the spread in any of those past 4 seasons under Brown. They thought they had a chance last year with big-name transfer quarterback JT Daniels show, the JT Daniels Road Show, making a 1-year stop in Morgantown after Athens, Georgia, after USC. Now he's at Rice. Didn't work out well. This was a very mediocre team last year. They got outscored on average during the season. In fact, their final 8 games of the year, they did not win the statistical battle in any of those 8 games against quality opponents. And now they're taking a huge step up in class. New quarterback Green is a dual threat. He's a runner and passer, but that tells me he's not a good passer when he's running the ball. So I think it's going to be tough for them to play from behind. Penn State can extend the lead here. My power ratings favor them by 26. The line is only 20.5, so it's currently under that key number of 21. And there's no look ahead on deck. Penn State has Delaware at home next week before opening the conference schedule at Illinois the following weekend. So no look ahead, primetime national spotlight game. I'll look for a very underrated Penn State team to make a statement and win by more than 3 touchdowns Saturday night.
Hey, value is value, even if you're laying 20 some odd points for the game, and that's what you got here. Now, the good news is all three of these guys want to hear from you. Any questions you have as far as big favorites, big underdogs, anything to do with this card week one, drop those questions in the comment section. All three of these guys, Merrill, Brian Power, Adam Trigger, they'll be looking for those questions and answering them leading right up until kickoff. So if you got a question, drop it down in the comment section here as we move on to some of our best bets. We got 3 for you. Colorado State game is a best bet. Lay it out for us here, man.
Well, Joe, in the Cal North Texas breakdown, I talked about there being 5 Power 5 road favorites against group of 5 teams this week, 4 of them from the Pac-12. Here's another one of them, Washington State, who, like Cal, I think is on the wrong side of what is a pretty stark divide in the Pac-12 this year. Maybe there's no longer divisions in the Pac-12, but it's really the have and have-nots. I think clear top 6, clear bottom 6 in that league. And turning to Colorado State in the Mountain West, you've got a team that I think everybody feels is going to be improved in 2023. They got 15 starters back, influx of talent via the transfer portal, and a great recruiting class as well. Now, obviously, there's a lot of room to improve. They went just 3-9 last year. It was a really rough start. They lost to Sacramento State. They were blown out by Sacramento State early in the year. But you look at the quarterback, Millen, he completed 72% of his passes in his 10 starts last year. I think the run game is going to be better. You got an All-American caliber receiver in this offense. And, Joe, I think Colorado State may have the edge defensively in this matchup. So, naturally, I'm going to take the points. Wazoo, they're only returning 5 starters on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know how they only gave up 22.9 points per game last year. They allowed over 400 yards per game. So you talk about bend but don't break. There you go. Offense does have 7 starters back, including the quarterback Cam Ward. But as I mentioned in that Cal North Texas write-up, OC Eric Morris, he's gone. So a new coordinator there. It was a tough spot that Jay Norvell walked into in Fort Collins last year. The team was not ready to go. They got blown out by Washington State, 38-7 in Pullman, as 16-point dogs last year. But this time around, Joe, motivated by revenge, I will gladly take the double digits. Norvell, 9-3 ATS all-time as a home dog. And meanwhile, Steve just talked about look-aheads. Wazoo, next week, they're hosting Wisconsin. Could that be on the players and staff mind? I think so. The Rams are going to put up enough points here to easily cover. Colorado State is today's best bet.
Wow. Could it possibly be that we were on the same page? Probably not. Trig, I'm going to move to you here, though, because this was a game for your best bet that Kelly and Marco on Bet On It were also, I believe, in agreement on. So I'm going to be interested to see which side of this Tulane, South Alabama matchup are you going to be betting?
Yeah, so this is a spot where I do think the dog can win. And I got to give our buddy Keith Bayou Bets Landry a shout out. He watches the Wager Talk program. Me and Brian have become friends with him. He texted us this morning and he's like, Trig, I can't believe you don't have South Alabama on your card. I looked at it a little bit more. I go, you know what? I can't believe it either. Been staring at this game for 3 weeks. It's one of those scenarios, Joe, where I had to add it. I had to make it a 4% client play, because if I didn't and it won, I'd be far more upset than if I left it off and it lost. So I am on the South Alabama Jaguars here. I took the +6.5. Another reason I took the +6.5 is I think this goes to 6. So even though I didn't get that 7 that was out there a couple weeks ago, I still think I'm going to end up with an okay number here, because I could see this going to 6 or even 5.5. And when it comes down to here, Joe, is I really think South Alabama is just a legit team. They've got virtually everyone back. They return as much. Believe they have the number one. I don't know the exact measurement for production, but what they return more guys, that key players that played snaps, than any other team in the country. I believe it's 9 starters on both sides of the ball, and they essentially have their whole team back from last year. which was a great team. If you go back to early last season, they probably should have beat UCLA. I believe they lost that game by 1 in a game that they had a great chance to win. On the other side of the ball here for Tulane, listen, I'm not like down on Tulane per se, but let's just acknowledge that they definitely have lost quite a bit. They keep their quarterback Michael Pratt, but he loses some big time skill players. Tajay Spears, Shea Watt, the other, I think the other brother, the two receivers and a running back that were huge for them last year when they were beating teams like Kansas State, like USC in the bowl game. So a team that was able to elevate their profile so much that they're nationally ranked coming into this season. And the kicker for me here, Joe, and the reason that it's just such a play that fits pretty much how I like to bet and what I try to do with a lot of these bets from week to week is the fact that Tulane has Ole Miss at home next week in the ultimate look ahead spot. It's going to be a huge game for them. It's at Yeoman in New Orleans. So do they take South Alabama fully seriously? I mean, they should, but they've got Ole Miss coming up next week, so they might not. And even if they did, what's to say South Alabama? I mean, this is a fantastic team, veteran, ton of seniors. What's to say they can't win anyway? So that's the way I'm looking at this one here. I'm going to roll the dice with the 6.5. But again, I would not be that surprised if South Alabama pulled the upset here. I don't even know how big of an upset it is, to be honest with you. I think South Alabama has a great chance to win. And I'm just going to be willing to play against Tulane in this spot because I just think that they're going to be a tad overvalued from what they did last year to this year. Taking the points, 4% client play, South Alabama plus 6.5.
All right. Love it there, guys. And again, if you love this kind of content, you're looking for more college football content, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, guys. We've got college football content and previews everywhere here at Wager Talk TV. So knowledge is power, and we do our best to provide the most for you as we welcome in RR1L Steve Merrill again here. And Steve, it's interesting. This game you're going to talk about for a best bet, Mr. Our good friend Rob Vino on yesterday's college football show. He broke this down, only he cut the game in half. So I'm wondering, how are you approaching it? You gave us a 20-point favorite in the big game breakdown. What are you going to do with an over 5 touchdown favorite here?
One thing I've learned over the years as a professional handicapper is don't be afraid to play good teams in focus spots against bad teams to blow them out. I don't like the buy and hope situation with big dogs, and I think this game is a textbook example. You've got Michigan without Harbaugh, so Harbaugh Sr. is going to be on the sideline instead, and they're looking to stick it to whoever they're playing. And poor East Carolina, the Pirates, have been in that role here that they're going to get blown out. And I think Michigan's going to roll. Even without Harbaugh, he has a history of blowing teams out in week 1. He doesn't take his foot off the gas. You can make an argument also the backups are even better for Michigan than the starters at East Carolina. So even in backup time, it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger. And they will roll. And the other reason I think this game is going to be so one-sided is that East Carolina has absolutely nothing. Our good friend Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, Mark Lawrence, SportsMemo.com, they both do great returning starting angles, efficiencies. Just looking at Mark's from his annual, 4 returning starters on offense, 6 on defense for East Carolina. That's pretty bad. But what jumps out to you is the efficiency returning. East Carolina ranks 132nd on offense, 128th on defense. They are the most inexperienced team in the country in FBS football, and they're taking on a powerhouse team in Michigan with a chip on their shoulder here in game 1 without Harbaugh, and I think they lay it to them. And by the way, no look ahead for Michigan. They've only got UNLV and Bowling Green on deck the next couple weeks at home. There's only one way to play this game, and that's Michigan. So the question becomes, is there value at minus 36? And I think there is. My mathematical game simulation, my rescore model has this game at 42. So I think the line is short. The situation is strong. And it all adds up to a solid play on Michigan. It's an early game at noon Eastern on Saturday. Don't miss it. And if you'd like my official best bets for this weekend, check out wagertalk.com and be sure to use promo code Steve7. That gets you 7 days and nights of both football and baseball for just $59. 7 days, all sports for just $59 with promo code Steve7, wagertalk.com.
And not only Steve, but Brian Power, as well as Adam Trigger, their best bets, of course, locked, loaded, ready to go on their pages at wagertalk.com. But don't go anywhere. because if you like these game previews and the best bet breakdowns, well, you've got another video here on your screen, which has all of that for you as we head into week 1 of the college football season. Best of luck, and we'll see you soon.